Good days and salam Malaysia Madani. I am Nicholas Goh and today I will answer one macro questions on how would an interest rate increase affect an economy using the Malaysia as the reference cases. A simple way to think about it is interest rate are the price of money. When the central bank rise the price, borrowing become more expensive and the saving become more attractive. There's one change ripples through the household, firms, the financial markets, and finally the overall economy. In Malaysia, the policy rate is the overnight policy rate (OPR). As at 22 of January 2026, the OPR is 2.75%. Malaysia's annual inflation averaged 1.4% in 2025, down from 1.8% in 2024. These numbers matters because they influence how strong the central bank's tightening the effect will be. So, my promise in the next few minutes is I will give you a clean exam ready story you can repeat, or PR, markets, credit, spending, GDP, jobs and inflections, and lastly FX and trades. Here is the roadmap. We'll start with the Malaysia context, then the transitions mechanism and the 5 channels. Then we zoom in the household, the cash flow, the firm, the cost of capitals, and the markets, the bonds, equities and properties. After that, we connect it to the GDP, employment and inflation. And finally, the open economy effect via the ringgit and trades. Most importantly, remember the timing. Market react first, spending and credit follow, and output reacts next. And inflation is usually the last because the price and the wages adjust slowly. That's why policy is forward-looking. So this slide encloses our starting point. First, OPR is 2.75%. Second, inflation is moderate, 1.4% in 2025 versus 1.8% in 2024. Third, and this is a key Malaysia factors, household debate. 2. GDP is high, rising from 83.8% in H1 2024 to 84.8% in the H1 in 2025. High leverage means rate hikes can bite faster through the higher repayments and tighter the credit. So, when we discuss impact later, Malaysia's high household leverage and the openness to global conditions will make the cash flow and also FX channels particularly relevant. Now, the mechanism. When B&M rises OPR, short-term funding costs and market yields go up. Back then, reprice lending, mortgage, hire purchase and business loan. So borrowing costs rise across the economy. From there, we can organize the story into 5 channels. First, the cash flow. So the borrowers pay more each month. Consumption falls. Second, the credit. Banks might tighten the standards. Fewer loans approved. And third, the asset prices. Higher discount rate reprice the bonds and equities. Fourth, the exchange rate. Higher yields may support the ringgit. And the fifth, expectations. Credible tightening and cross the inflation expectations. All routes lead to the macro results. Growth slows first. Inflation fall later. Household fuel rate hikes directly. When rate rise, loan repayments increase, reducing disposable income. This tends to reduce consumption, especially big tickets, items like the car and also the housing. Saver can benefit because deposit return rise, but the key macro effect is usually the borrower side. Cash flow get squeezed. The mortgage example make it concrete. For a 5,000k ringgit Malaysia for 30 years loan, rising rate from 4% to 4.5% increases monthly payment by roughly 139 ringgit Malaysia. Multiply that across many households and you can see why demand cool. For firm, the keyword is WACC, the weighted average cost of capital. Higher interest rate increase the cost of debt, pushing WACC up. When WACC rises, fewer projects meet the NPV less than 0 threshold. So, firm postpone investment. That's why we say R increase will cause the investment decrease. This is particularly important for SME that's rarely heavily on bank loan. The businesses respond then feeds into jobs. Slower investment often means slower hiring. Financial markets adjust quickly. For bonds, yes up means price down. A useful Viva shortcut is the duration rule. So this is the rule. And so if the duration is 7 and years price 0.5% points, bond prices fall by around 3.5%. For equities and property, the same logic works through the discounting. Higher R reduce the present value of future cash flow, so valuations typically compress. So now, link everything to macro outcomes. Start with GDP equal to Y equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Rates hikes mainly reduce C and I first, and shifting aggregate demand left. Employment cool with a lag. Firms slow hiring first, then unemployment may rise if demand stay weak. Inflation is usually last to respond because wages and the price setting is sticky and expectation move gradually. For Malaysia, we add the open economy channels. Higher yields can support the ringgit, lowering imported inflation. But a stronger currency can weigh on net exports. So there's a growth versus the disinflation trade-off. So now let me summarize in 6 takeaways you can memorize. First, OPR increase, cost of borrowing cost increase and credit condition tighten. Second, households repayments increase, cost of consumption become decrease. Third, firms WACC increase, the investment will decrease and hiring will become slow. And fourth, markets replies, bonds decrease, equities or property face the discount rate pressure. And the fifth, GDP slow earlier, inflation fall later because of lag. And the last one, open economy. FX can help these inflections via the import price, but may weaken net exports. So the policy trade-off is stabilize inflation and expectations without triggering an unnecessary growth or financial stability shock. That's why central bank often calibrate the pace of hike and use the microprudential tools like the LTV and DSR stress test to manage the risk. So now I will simulate the common Q&A and I will answer using the pattern of channel, direction, Malaysia factors and implication. Alright, so let's see with the question 1. Who wins and loses when the rate rise. So for information, borrowers lose through the cash flow, savers gain through the higher return, and the bank may see the higher margin initially, but the credit risk can rise if the household become stressed, and especially in a high demand economy. Now, we see about the question 2. Shall Malaysia follow the US fit? Not mechanically. B&M focuses on the domestic inflation and growth. But in an open economy, it must also consider FX stability and capital flow. If the interest differential become too wide, it can pressure the ringgit, which then affect the imported inflation. Now, question 3. Why does inflation flow slowly after a hike? This is because prices and the wages are sticky, contracts are fixed, and the expectations adjust gradually. Policy hit the spending first, output next, and the inflation lasts often over 12 to 24 months. Question 4. Will higher rates crash the housing market? So this is actually depends on the job and the forced shelling. If employment stays strong and the macroprudential rule prevent the excessive leverage, housing may cool rather than the cash. But if employment rises, stress can spread through the default and also the price declines. And the last question, question 5. Which sector are most interest sensitive? So the answer is usually housing and construction, outdoors and durables, and highly leveraged firms, because this depend heavily on the financial costs. One sentence to wrap up. OPR hikers tighten financial condition, cool demand and reprice asset. Inflation fall with a lag. Alright, so finally the references. So my key sources are from this list. For example, the B&M's have mixed indicators for OPR, the MGSEs and the US dollar as well as the Malaysian ringgit, the DOSM CPI December 2025 release for inflation, and B&M financial stability reviews for the household debate statistic. So that's all for me, and thank you so much for watching.